Well, it's 2025, which means another year has rolled by and we're looking at turning 68 this year. So what am I going to talk about this year? Well, I think I'm going to talk about fire, because legend has it that when I was a baby, I crawled into a fire. And somehow I got dragged out and I survived, and here I am. So fire was the beginning, and fire would be the theme of this 68th birthday video. Now fire is an interesting thing, and I've played with fire ever since I was a baby, I guess. But brought up in a farm, and to develop the farm, the family had to clear a lot of bush, a lot of trees came down, and we set fire to a lot of things. So we played with fire. Well, I played with fire when I was a kid. And fire and smoke has always been part of my childhood. Now, fast forward quite a few decades, and here in Sydney, in Australia, I remember in the old days when we used to go out camping, we used to be able to light campfires, and we'll set up our tents and we'll have our campfire, and we would go and toast marshmallows in the campfire. Well, modern life soon put a stop to that, and fires are really frowned upon in the age of climate change. So now, most campsites that you go to, you are not allowed to have fires. But there are still places where you can go out and camp and build a fire. So last year, we went out to Victoria and we went to the Grampians. And I guess one of the highlights of our trip to the Grampians in Victoria was the fact that we kind of camped out, and I was able to light some campfires. And now, just thinking about what happened in the last year, I'm going, well, the fire is a great analogy of what happened in the last year, because it's hard to imagine, but since my last video, when I turned 67, a hell of a lot has happened. And you would think that things would slow down as you get older, but in fact, the opposite has happened. Things actually sped up. And a lot of things got cramped into the last 12 months. And as I stand there shooting this video, I'm kind of on a construction site, because this is the site of our new home. And I guess it's kind of a couple of months away from being finished. So what happened? Well, about this time last year, we moved out of our old home, which is at the same spot that I'm standing on. It got demolished, and then we proceeded to put a new house up. So that's the old house. And yeah, the excavator's in, and we're ready to tear the roof down. Now, that's the next stage. Everything's all down. The site's nice and clear, and just the garage remains. So what the builder did is built the foundation up. Now there's the waffle slab in, the reinforcements in, and the concrete is here. So the foundations get poured, and that's what it looks like once the concrete has gone off. And now we're looking at standing the ground floor framing, the wall framing up. And we are starting to put in the girders for the upper story, and the floor is on for the second story, and the framing is starting to go up for the exterior walls around the building. The roof girders, the roof trusses are going on. So roof trusses have been put in, and we're just about ready for the next stage. And you can see the roof trusses are up, scaffolding's up, and we are ready for the next stage, the brickwork. So the brickwork gets put up, and now the roof is on. So that's looking from the front, and the roof is on. We're looking at the back of the house now, and
we are ready for all the internal works.
So in the last 12 months, the old house gone and a new house has propped up. So that's just one of the things that's been crammed into the last 12 months. There's a multitude of other things that has happened in the last 12 months. And when I look back at it, I think it's kind of impossible that it could have happened. So besides being thrown out of home and having a new home being built, a lot of things have happened. We have things in my business, and it's a business that I'm continuing with, no thought of retirement.
Well, my major achievement in business this year would have to be the fact that we're probably the only roofing company in Australia that gets paid by Google on YouTube. So we monetize our channel. We're the only roofing company in Australia, I believe, that monetizes our channel and get paid by YouTube.
We got my cycling, and cycling's always mixed in with holidays, I guess, because Shirley looks forward to my cycling because she gets a chance to go away on holidays.
Well, my first trip was to Lawn in Victoria, where we immediately got the camper van bogged, but had a good race and qualified for the World Championships next year. And then we were off to Loxton in South Australia for the National Road Championships. Gotcha! And as you can see, I managed a silver medal in the National Championships. And then we went up to Brisbane for another cycling event. We had a look at a majestic waterfall on the way up to Brisbane. And so I rode the Tour de Brisbane, and I got a second qualification for the World Championships in Lawn next year. So now we are off to Taipei for the World Masters Games. So I guess platform 4, train number 666, may be a sign of things to come. Anyway, we raced in the wet and then in the dry. And in the road race, I managed to time my sprint to perfection. And guess what? I got a gold medal in the World Masters Games. So that's my cycling.
So we've had a lot happening, and I'm asking myself, why is it possible to cram so many things into a year? And not only cramming so many things, but cramming in things that are so rewarding. So let's go back and talk about fire. And the thing about building a campfire is that there's a lot of work that goes into building a campfire before even the match is lit. So, for instance, when I went and built this campfire down in the Grampians, there's not a lot of firewood around, right? So the first thing you've got to do is go and gather firewood. And it's got to be the right size. You need the large, chunkier logs, and you need the finer leaves and everything to start the fire. So you need to range the full spectrum of firewood to start the fire and keep the fire going. So you got to go around and look for firewood. So you go slogging away looking for firewood. You still have no fire, right? Eventually you get enough firewood together and you light your fire. And when you light your fire, you got to fan the flames and get the fire to build. And as the fire builds up, you got to put in more and more firewood so that it becomes really a bonfire. So this is much like the earlier stages of life where you have to put in a lot of hard work to actually get the fire going. You got to start the fire, you got to feed the flames, feed the fire, and kind of give life to the fire, right? But the thing with fires is that when you first start a fire, it kind of gets out of control. You got to build it up there's flames everywhere, and it's kind of out of control. And at this stage of the fire, it's all rather chaotic, and you don't get a lot of enjoyment out of it. In fact, you might get burnt because of the flames. So you got a fire kind of a little bit out of control, but you got to feed it so you can get the fire going. And it's not until when all the flames kind of die down and the fire becomes glowing embers, that the fire becomes useful. Now, if you wanted to cook with the fire, you don't try to cook when you are actually starting the fire. You actually cook when you are in the ember stage, because the temperature is nicely controlled and it's not too hot, and you can actually cook quite well just with the embers. So the ember stage is the stage where you get to be able to actually utilize the fire so that the fire becomes useful. So at the ember stage, it becomes useful. You can do lots of things in the ember stage because you can sit closer to the fire, you can enjoy the warmth, and you don't get the risk of being burnt, right? So this is kind of what I think can happen when you get on in life and when you get into the ember stage. Now, you've done all the hard work getting the firewood, being able to start the fire, and the fire just blows up, and you'll allow the fire to die down, and now you're in your ember stage. This is the stage where you can actually enjoy the fruits of the fire. And you don't need to make things happen anymore. You just let it happen. You put a few fresh logs into the fire, feed it a little bit, and it provides you with everything that you need. And this is, I guess, how you are able to throw so much enjoyable things into such a short spell of time, like a year, when you are in the ember stage, because you've done most of the hard work and you just let nature take its course, right? You don't have to force things. Things just happen. And much like you would plant a fruit tree, nothing really happens in the first few years, but then it bears fruit and you don't really have to do anything. The fruits just come. And this is exactly how I feel over the last year, is that things happen without me having to force anything for it to happen. And so much can happen in the ember stage of a campfire, right? Because this is when everyone gathers around, they enjoy the warmth of the campfire quite safely and tell stories. And this is the really enjoyable phase of the campfire, the ember stage. I think my emphasis in the following year, in the next year, in my 68th year, is to stoke the fire a little bit, just fan the embers, and just be able to just let the embers produce its magic. Because you don't really know when the embers will actually die off. And the campfire is either put out or it just dies because that's the end of this particular campfire. So hopefully I'll be able to report back in another year and still be in as light a mood as I am now. And between 68 and 69, the embers continue to do its magic.